thank goodness. Officer, please, come quickly.
Bonjour, mademoiselle.
It has become a madhouse. Madame has been shouting and cursing all morning. I've never seen her so angry. But
Please, try to remain calm.
we don't have time for that. Please.
Mademoiselle, now we are here, I must insist on your name before I can continue any further.
I am Elizabeth, but it is the maidservant that we must consider. Forgive me, officer, but are you new to the area?
I stand out so...
I mean no offence, only I have not seen you before. This is a small town, and you learn everyone's...
Very observant of you, madam.
There has been a theft at the house.
Then I am...
It is only one of Mademoiselle Angeline's most valuable bracelets, taken from her room.
Then it's safe
Madame Van... I'm afraid I did...
Merci, mademoiselle. Ah.
What a revelation!
Of course, officer. One set must be mine, leaving to find you. The other set must be Florette's. She was caught in the rain this morning.
Merci, mademoiselle.
Oh. Huh. Aha. Ah. Mhm. Huh. Hmm. Huh.
Of course, officer. How can I... There is, sir. Luke. But he was called away from the house on a personal matter. Rahan... Excuse me?
The carving on the bench. Forgive.
Oh, of course not.
Would you know the identity of...
I'm afraid not. Perhaps they were old residents. A pair of star-crossed lovers, perhaps. Madame does not allow.
Love is not something...
That is Madame...
Merci, mademoiselle.
Is there something I am not seeing? I should not be surprised by my own skills of deduction. Come, my little grey cells. We must think I cannot see the logic in this. Order and method. That is the... The pieces of the puzzle are finally coming.
Of course, officer. How...
Merci, mademoiselle. Oh.
Some would say a lucky guess. This will not get me any closer to my goal. I must act on thought and... I must take a different approach if I am to... Order and method. That is the... This will not get me any closer. I cannot see the logic in this. I must act on thought. I must take a different approach if... Come, my little grey cells. Another success. Is there something... Come, my little grey cells. We must think logically. This will not get me any closer to... I must act on thought and fact. Is there something I... Things are beginning to be...
I have conducted my initial inspection of the house and ground.
Of course. Thank you, officer. I'm sure...
Who are you? You are not the commanding officer.
No, dear madame, I am Officer Hercule Poirot.
This will simply not do.
And that...
You understand correctly. It is my
And valuable to your daughter, no doubt.
Yes? I do not believe so. I know so. It was
And what...
Because I don't. I do not need to explain. Don't be ridiculous. I have told you who is guilty. If there had been a break...
If it was the case, of course, madame. Although I...
Perhaps then you have proved me right, and you aren't the...
Merci, madame. You have been... Aha. Oh. Mm-hmm. Hmm. 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 Huh. Oh.
What do you think you're doing in here?
Mademoiselle Angeline, I presume.
An officer of the law? But
Your bracelet has gone missing. It is only correct. I speak with all members of the house. Merci. I will attempt to take up...
Some rat stole my bracelet this morning. Even though it's clear someone has broken in, Maman refused to listen and
You sound very convinced it was taken by someone from...
my window was open when I returned. How else can you... It is of great value.
It was a gift from your father. I can only...
Of course it does. It must have been while I was down at breakfast.
Mademoiselle Elizabeth was with you until you discovered the bracelet was missing?
She was.
You have been of great help to my investigation, mademoiselle. I... Aha. Oh. Ah. Huh. Aha. Ah. Huh. Aha.
The longer you're here, is one I have checked everywhere. You can ask Elida.
As I have... You have been of great help to my investigation,
I cannot see the logic in this. I must take a different approach if I am to uncover the truth.
Really, officer? Only if you are prepared to take...
It is an offense to incarcerate someone without suitable proof of misdeeds. I must question...
If you... And what?
May I ask of the subject?
You may not.
Merci, madame. You...
Order and method. That is the way. This will not get me any closer. Magnifique. Is there something I have... I must act on thought and... I cannot see the logic in this. Perhaps a second look at... Magnifique.
Really, officer?
Merci, madame. Mademoiselle Elizabeth, I hope you are feeling less distressed now. I can assure you...
Thank you, officer. Yes.
Bien sûr. Rest assured she will get the fair trial she deserves. I wonder if you could help me with some questions regarding...
Of course. When I left, Madame was with Florette in there. Surely she would not have locked...
Madame Van den Bosch should not be deciding her fate.
I would, sir, but I don't have the key. There is a spare somewhere, though. Oh, how awful the...
Do you have any thoughts as to...
I'm sorry. Madame does not trust the staff with such knowledge, even me. Although I did overhear her once say it was... Now I think of it, I don't recall seeing her memento tin. She holds her...
Merci, mademoiselle.
I must take a different approach if I am to uncover... Come, my little grey cells. We must... Order and method. That is... The pieces of the puzzle are finally...
Certainly, officer. Madame is the one with the refined taste. Angeline and I are much more partial.
Aren't we all? Romy... Merci, mademoiselle.
I must act on thought and... Order and method. That is the way... Some would say a lucky guess. I would... Come, my little grey cells. We must think... I must take a different approach if I am to Is there something I am not seeing? Things are beginning to be...
Finally, it is unlocked.
What exactly do you...
If I am to serve justice, I must be able to reach...
The girl is guilty and shall pay the price for her crime. I shall see to...
Everyone deserves to tell their side of the story. Mademoiselle Florette,
Please, officer. I did nothing wrong.
please relax, my dear. If you have done nothing wrong, you have nothing to worry about.
Relax. So you don't think I took the bracelet?
As of this moment.
I didn't even know it was missing till I got accused of taking.
There must be some reason.
How could I? Rihanna, the cook is away, so I had to fetch breakfast for the house and prepare it all myself.
From what I understand of Madame Van den Bosch, she would not have been best pleased.
Not best pleased? I thought she was going to batter me to death with a baguette. I hid in the kitchen and then tried to stay out of sight in the lounge until breakfast.
Perhaps a brave move under the circumstances.
Madame, I must. Now I am.
Merci. I shall take. Oh. Ah. Ah. Huh. Oh. Aha. Hmm.
Another success. This will not get me any closer to my goal. I cannot see the logic in this. Perhaps. I should not be surprised by my... What a rep... This will not get me any closer to... The pieces of the puzzle are fine. Is there something? I must act on thought and fact, not... I must take a different approach if I am to uncover the... Things are beginning to become clear. Come, my little grey cells. We... Magnifique. I cannot see the logic in this. Order and method. Some would say a lucky guess.
Anything to... Yes. Another thing on my to-do list.
At whose request?
It was...
Merci.
Really, officer, you... If you have something to ask of me... I have... I am glad you have finally... The position of this family has and will remain... Officer, you have waited enough.
My intention was not to anger you, madame. I was merely commenting.
If you have something to ask, officer, And this is... I doubted your ability. It is challenging at times, I will admit. I have tried my best to provide for Angeline, although sometimes she...
You are accepting the hand you have been dealt and raising a fine young...
And you have done nothing but bother my staff and my family. I cannot...
The longer you are here, the... Maman is never happy with anything these days. Also, Florette does have a...
And how does she react when she sees Florette?
Maman has a temperament of a kicked cat.
That is how she responded today?
She was How should I know? I returned to the room and father was face down on...
So it is your father that is...
Isn't he? Maman never wants to talk about him. She says it's too...
I'm sure that is not the case. It must have been...
I miss him every day. He always... In the summer, father and I would play hide and seek while Maman read. She always helped. I would stand in the gazebo, cover my eyes and count. And when I turned, he was nowhere to be seen. Maman would lower her book and flash a look towards his... When I was hiding, it didn't matter where I was. He could never find me. I always thought I was an expert hider, but he always knew just what...
I am sure he would want you to be smiling. You have been of great help to my investigation, madam.
Anything to show...
Merci.
Certainly, officer. The lounge? A package?
Oui, it is quite hard to...
Oh, how silly of me. I must have had my head in the... Besides the terrible rain? No. I woke, began my duties with Mademoiselle. I had already laid out a clean dress.
And the bracelet was still there when you left the room.
I'm sure of it. Why, yes, officer! I misplaced it after wiping a stain from Mademoiselle Angelieve's sleeve at breakfast.
You are not the first to say. Had she not noticed it herself, I imagine Madame would not allow...
It baffled... Madame is under a great deal of strain. It can't have been easy for her to...
And this morning...
It's not the... Madame's scolding of Fleurette this morning was the worst I have seen her temper.
Could there have been another...
Madame was not...
Merci, mademoiselle.
Another success. I should not be surprised by my... What a revelation!
Certainly, officer. How could I not be? I may not enjoy his other works.
Especially being able to draw similarities between their own...
But I hadn't...
Mademoiselle, I am an officer of the...
Please, you cannot say anything to Madame. She is against staff
But he means so much more to you.
Oh, officer. At first, it was nothing more than pleasantries around the grounds. But that quickly changed. I know it's not proper for a young lady to pursue a gentleman.
Love
The mere thought of him was enough to make me blush. But I knew that Madame would never give her blessing. If we wanted to continue, we would have to do so in secret. The summer evenings here are just so beautiful. I often find myself walking around the grounds after my daily duties. He looked ever so handsome. And the poet standing there beneath the warm glow of the falling sun. Oh, I'm sorry, officer. I've been chattering.
One should never apologize for such a charming and bewitching story of love. Merci, mademoiselle.
Order and method. That is the way to solve the Things are beginning to become clearer. Is there something... This will not get me any closer. I cannot see the logic in this. What a revelation! I must take a different approach if I am to Some would say a lucky guess. I must act on thought. Come, my little grey cells. We must think. Magnifique. Come, my little grey cells. We must think. This will not get me any closer to my goal. I must act on thought and fact. I should not be surprised by my...
Anything to show. She never used to be such a witch. When the Viscount was alive, I would have gone long ago, monsieur. But my...
I was not aware you were supporting your family.
Papa lost his job at the factory just before he left for good. So Mama had to work even more. When I joined the Vandenbosch house, the Viscount was... He gave me some extra in my first pay pack. Enough to keep the landlord from kicking Mama out at least. No one had ever been that nice. He even let me to go home and visit Mama and my brothers at Christmas with a food parcel from the kitchen. It's always been hard for her. Even before he left for good. When I walked in Mama's house, everything seemed so much smaller. I must have got too used to the size of this house.
The valuables in the house do not determine the love it shares.
Someone should tell Madame that. Not that she'd listen anyways.
I will uncover the truth of what happened to... Merci. I...
The longer you're here...
You have been of great... Mhm.
Is there something? I must take a different approach if I am to uncover the truth. I cannot see the logic in this. Another success.
Certainly, officer. You have found the culprit?
Everything will be revealed in good time.
Of course.
Merci, Mademoiselle Elizabeth, for gathering everyone. Will Madame Van den Bosch be...
She stormed past me not long ago, and I have not seen her return.
Very well. Under usual circumstances, I would wait. But I think we have spent enough time on this matter. This morning started like any other. My usual ordinary patrol.
A crime I've been
That I shall come to. I began my investigation outside, but it was not long before I realized there were no signs of an intruder. So, Florette, your time here at the house has not always been the...
I do what Madame tells me.
And to the highest
Madame's standards are very high.
And you would at least expect fair treatment for the work.
Monsieur?
I refer to how poorly Madame Van den Bosch treats you. You are at her beck and call, and she does nothing but belittle you.
That is Maman you're talking about.
It is nothing but the truth I speak, Mademoiselle. All the while, Mademoiselle stands by and does not even notice such cruelty. Perhaps you thought it was time they deserved...
Stop trying to put words in her mouth.
I am merely giving her a voice. One that has been silenced for...
Maybe I do think she deserves it. She's had the world handed to her.
A motive begins to...
You're just trying to get me to admit to something. I was only trying...
As any friend would. Even knowing your late return would anger... But in the matter of the missing bracelet, it gave you a...
I told you I didn't do it!
There is no feasible way that you could have... While she was present with Mademoiselle Elizabeth, removed the bracelet and still completed your duties. Which takes us to Mademoiselle Elizabeth. You have been...
That is correct.
You have grown close with both ladies of the house and your fellow men...
Of course.
You yourself told me Madame van den Bosch would not stand for it, and
Elizabeth?
a love that is reminiscent of Romeo and Juliet.
If you don't stop, I will tell Maman.
It may be a tone you do not like, but it is no worse than your
I'm sorry. This isn't how I wanted you to find out. We couldn't risk Madame finding out.
What are you talking about?
Luke and I...
Luke? The gardener?
For fear of Madame and her rule, and if neither of you had employment, there would be no way to...
It was never our plan to go behind yours or...
You too?
Yes. Well, no. Not today, as of...
It is not always what one thinks, or how something may appear.
You can't believe I would hide my own breath? I have not... How dare you... You can't actually believe I would...
If you didn't, explain to me how your memento tin with the bracelet inside,
You have no proof I put it there.
besides you being the only one in the room alone, even after until I contemplated why Madame was selling so many...
You had no right to snoop through our...
When it is part of my investigation, I have every right, mademoiselle.
Maman can do what she wants with her art.
But when there was no more art to sell, what then? You... So, you staged a burglary pretending it had been taken, preventing her from selling it.
She didn't think about me at all. She was going to take my bracelet and sell it. I didn't think Maman would blame her. I didn't think she would do anything.
But she did. And somehow that evidently didn't cross your mind.
Maman can't know what I have done. She will be furious.
But Mademoiselle Florette will be proved innocent. No crime has been committed. It is time you considered the consequence. And now, you must...
Maman, you're home.
Of course I am. And I've brought someone that will bring...
Major, I can assure you, I have this...
From what I have heard, you are far...
The missing bracelet has been found, and the guilty
I'm well aware that the maid servant...
I am sure Madame van den Bosch has informed you of her...
Excuse me?
After...
I certainly hope...
I'm sorry, Maman. He's right. Florette is in a...
Shh, girl. I will not have you guilted into... Perhaps it would benefit you to remember you are nothing...
Officer Poirot. Madame van den Bosch was forced to make her way to inform me.
Major, with all due respect...
This may be how some officers act in the city, but here we show respect to insubordination like...
As the ranking officer, I have...
Ranking officer? Ha! You are an auxiliary officer. You have little authority. After what I have heard of your past in the city, I'm sure...
Oui.
Now I suggest you do your duty and escort the maidservant to the station
Right away. I'm sorry, mademoiselle. This is...
Maman was right. We'll always pay the price for the...
We will do everything we can to clear your...
What can you do now? Madame said I'm guilty of a crime.
A crime that was never committed. Once the truth is explained...
Angeline did not intend for you to be arrested. Surely you know her better than that.
I should have known better than to expect anything else.
What you saw today was not justice. In the eyes of the law, you are innocent.
But that doesn't help my employment.
That I cannot save. But your freedom...
Detective Poirot, I trust this finds you well. It has been many years since our paths last crossed, and while I'm sure your recollection of the events may differ from mine, I hope that receiving this letter has not rekindled a sense of animosity toward myself or the Van der Bosch name. The impression you made is something that has stayed with me since that day. It compelled me to reconsider the spoilt young lady I would have inevitably become and helped shape me into the woman I wished to be. You made me see the childish and selfish girl in me that did not consider the consequences of her actions or how they may affect others. Although Maman may see the events of that day differently, I believe the compassion you showed for our mate Florette, as well as the drive to uncover the truth and accept no alternative, was a testament to your character and professionalism. Although I wish it were under different circumstances, your assistance is once again required, and I hope you will consider this as my formal request for your service. This forthcoming weekend was due to be one full of joy and happiness at the announcement of my engagement to Gideon Demire, whom I love dearly, bringing together two illustrious families, but it has been shadowed by deceit, extortion, and blackmail. The Van der Bosch name is being held to ransom by a mysterious party, and I am afraid I do not know who I can and cannot trust. We are holding a small gathering to celebrate our exciting news with what Maman calls the dignified elite, those that are well respected and held in high regard in both our close inner circle and society. Our private matters have always remained just that, so I fear one of those invited may be the person who is out to ruin our name, but for reasons I cannot fathom. I have enclosed a first-class rail ticket for you to join us for the announcement, and having contacted your superiors and the correct authorities to request your assistance, which they were more than happy to grant me, I shall expect your arrival with great anticipation. There shall be a carriage waiting for you at the station to bring you directly to Mnemosyne House. I thank you in advance in our time of crisis. Yours respectfully, Angeline van der Bosch.